Here I am. Take the sandals from your feet. For the place on which you stand is holy ground. Who are you? I am that I am. I don't understand.
Hi, I'm Peter Russell, and all my life I've been fascinated by science and the discoveries it's making about the world. But the one thing that science hasn't been able to explain is the very fact that we are conscious, that we each have an inner world of experience. It's easier to explain how life evolved from simple cells into human beings than it is to explain why any of us ever has a single conscious thought. And yet the very fact that we are conscious is the one thing we cannot deny.
And there's an ocean of pure, vibrant consciousness inside each one of us. And it's right at the source and base of mind, right at the source of thought, and it's also at the source of all matter. This pure consciousness is called by modern physics the unified field. It's at the base of all mind and all matter. And they now say, modern science says, all of matter, everything that is a thing, emerges from this field. And this field has qualities like bliss, intelligence, creativity, universal love, energy, peace. And it's not the intellectual understanding of this field, but the experiencing of it that does everything.
What is consciousness? Consciousness includes a number of things. It's how we perceive our world. It's our thoughts and intentions. It's being aware and so much more.
I'm not sure how to tell this story, the origins of consciousness. I feel that it may be easier to begin by explaining that there is a pre-material infrastructure from which human consciousness manifests itself in our material world. We've adopted terms in our colloquial lexicon like matrix of consciousness, structure of thought, belief systems, frame of mind, thought forms, thought patterns, and many other expressions to describe human consciousness structurally. The infrastructure of consciousness shape our external world, but it also determines our place in it by how our personal identities have been formed within the context of the greater infrastructure itself. I must let you know that I must use this infrastructure to describe the infrastructure. What I'm attempting to describe is a living, functioning process whose movements, expressions, and manifestations are all interdependent. As we try to grasp and describe the infinite nature of our universe, the vastness of space, and its origin in time, we use our minds, our thoughts, emotions, and our languages to convey these perceptions. It seems quite natural. But why do we use the finite to experience and define the infinite? Does the process of naming and isolating one piece of the whole ever allow us to know the whole, or just a whole lot of pieces? But as we all know, the whole is more than merely the sum of its parts. The infinite nature, the absolute, that cannot be named, gave rise to the infinite nature of naming things. Naming, as a process of thought and language, is as infinite as that which we give names to. We seem to expand our identities through this process of naming as we explore our consciousness and the physical universe we live in. In fact, the form of our identities was informed this way, and the function of our identities reflects these forms. All of our conflicts arise from either being wrongfully identified or protecting ourselves within such identities. The infinite fluid continuity of the absolute, unconditional love, is divided by the force of exclusion, absolute exclusivity, an empty void of spatial separation that sets in motion the material creation of the universe in the pre-material forms of consciousness as we know it. Where once being preceded becoming, all became in an act of cataclysmic division, where from one, between itself, within itself, a space in place where it was not. This is the origin of paradox, the paradox of the infinite, formed in and informed by thought. Before the essence of undifferentiated being became, that part of itself that was to become separated from itself knew no experience of need, living in a pre-spatial, pre-temporal continuum of unconditional love, where fulfillment was preeminent through the essential vibratory abundance of love embracing love with infinite arms of acceptance. Now, having fragmented, there is an instantaneous shock of awakening from a dimension of being, awareness, and bliss to a pre-conscious realization of difference. This event signifies the initial primordial dimensional descent into consciousness and the existential origins of reality as we perceive it, coupled simultaneously with a shocking realization of difference, are the birth of desire and the material force of gravity. When we understand how this infrastructure works within our own lives and within the human world as a whole, we will then be able to realize the answer we have searched for our whole lives and yet known from the beginning of time. An answer, in a word, more misunderstood than any other. Let us acknowledge, once again, that words enclosing meaning are only metaphors for being, the being of existence in timeless presence. In this way, they are not actions at all, but rather extemporaneous expressions of beingness embracing itself. Unconditional love, synonymous with the Absolute, the preeminent source of all that is by its very nature unconditionally inclusive. That is to say that being inclusive of all realities as representations of itself, unconditional love containing the essential quality of absolute inclusivity, does not differentiate itself into duality. The vastness of its all-inclusive acceptance includes even that which opposes it, denies it, rejects it, or is ignorant of it. This is the origin of creation itself. Psychological space defines a moment in psychological time. All that seems so full in thought, its essence, before it was defined in our minds, given a name, an identity, and trapped as such in psychological time. What this is came from the source of all that is, to become the source of nourishment and sustenance for the antithetical force. What this is, that's trapped in time, inside our memories, is what we have come to call desire.
Your own thought and emotion kept you so busy, you thought this is life. But when the moment of death comes, suddenly you know the drama that you were turning on within you looked so real, but the moment lights are going off, then you know this is not it.
This consciousness shines in the mind, and through that, in the body, in all the organs of the body, and you feel this consciousness. This is the answer.
Personality is something that people are trying to develop because they have no sense of being. Instead of the real thing, you're trying to concretize the fake thing. So personality is something that you have taken on, but you have become so unconscious about it that you think it's for real. If something is true, even if you forget it, it's still there, no problem. But if it's a lie, you have to keep it up. Your personality is a lie. Your being, your existence is the truth. You don't have to keep this up. This will be anywhere there.
We are absolutely connected. It's like, there's no question about it to me. There's no separation. That's been physically proven by science. I think everybody's looking for something that they already have.
I think the reason that we don't notice it is because we are so distracted by the human levels of our experience. Because you might not actually be what you think you are.
The fact that we're already enlightened, we're already complete, and it's just realizing that you're complete. So everything we do to each other, or everything we see in each other, is us seeing ourselves.
And yet the one thing that remains is this feeling of existence.
Consciousness exists outside of time and outside of space. What does that really mean? If something is outside of time, what are we really saying? When we say that consciousness is outside of time and space, we mean that consciousness is outside of time and space, and that is an absolute reality.
Time, but pure awareness as it is presently being, and it's the one that's being aware here, by the way. You know, can't get around that. You can't escape it. It's what truly is. It is not a process that's in time. It is not changing, and so. There you have it.
And what's your theory of what reality is?
If you take a look at reality, the highest level of reality, the very highest level, is going to be an identity. An identity is something that distributes over everything in the system, right? And the CTMU is designed to be that identity. So it is everywhere present on both physical and metaphysical levels. Well, I'm aware of the metaphysical structure of reality. If you take the average person, you know, they really think that they live in the material world and that that's it, all right? Anybody who is aware that there is actually another dimension or other dimensions to reality, then you start getting into spirituality. Because what connects the perceptual world to these other dimensions, if not spirit?
What do you see?
Well, you actually see connections and correlations. You see patterns, right, that are not necessarily separated into dimensions. 3 dimensions, they have a special property, which is they're all independent of each other. That's what it means. They're orthogonal, they're perpendicular, right? Mathematically, that means that they're independent. The dimensions of reality are not all independent of each other. They get tangled up and tied up in certain ways. And those are the patterns that you can see that will inform you of spiritual reality.
What's your definition of God personally?
The identity of reality. You see, I've been talking about reality, and I've been talking about the identity of reality. God is reality. As a matter of fact, God is the ultimate reality. He is reality on its very highest level. No other definition of God makes sense.
So the idea is that the universe and all of us and our mind and our perception all adds up to be God?
Right. The universe is a coupling of mind and perceptual reality. Right? What you see out there, the external world and the internal world being your mind. This is a coupling, and it's not a coupling you can take apart and reduce to separate parts. It is one thing with 2 aspects. That's what I mean by a coupling, and that's what the universe is, and that's what God is as well. Except God has the power to actually factorize himself or fractionate himself into this coupling.
You see, the word belief is a difficult thing for me. I don't believe. I must have a reason for a certain hypothesis. Either I know a thing, and when I know it, I don't need to believe it. If I don't allow myself, for instance, to believe a thing just for the sake of believing it. I can't believe it. But when there are sufficient reasons for a certain hypothesis, I shall accept.
Fortunately, I got to you before they did.
You got to me. You did this to me. You cut my hair. You tortured me. You tortured me. Why?
You said you wanted to live without fear. I wish there'd been an easier way, but there wasn't.
Oh my God.
I know you may never forgive me, but nor will you ever understand how hard it was for me to do what I did. Every day I saw in myself everything you see in me now. Every day I wanted to end it, but each time you refused to give in. I knew I couldn't.
You're sick. You're evil.
You could have ended it, Evie. You could have given in, but you didn't. Why?
Leave me alone. I hate you.
That's it! See, at first, I thought it was hate too. Hate was all I knew. It built my world, imprisoned me, taught me how to eat, how to drink, how to breathe. I thought I'd die with all the hate in my veins. But then something happened. It happened to me, just as it happened to you.
Shut up! I don't want to hear your lies!
Your own father said that artists use lies to tell the truth. Yes, I created a lie. But because you believed it, you found something true about yourself.
No.
What was true in that cell is just as true now. What you felt in there has nothing to do with me.
I can't feel anything anymore.
Don't run from it, Evie. You've been running all your life. Listen to me, Evie. This may be the most important moment of your life. Commit to it. They took your parents from you. They took your brother from you. They put you in a cell and took everything they could take, except your life. And you believed that was all there was, didn't you? The only thing you had left was your life, but it wasn't, was it?
Please.
You found something else. In that cell, you found something that mattered more to you in life. Because when they threatened to kill you unless you gave them what they wanted, you told them you'd rather die. You faced your death, Evie. You were calm. You were still. Try to feel now what you felt then.
God. I felt...
Yes.
I'm dizzy. I need air. Please. I need to be outside.
There's a lift. It'll take us to the roof.